Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, November the 22nd, 2016. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows today, our first of two shows this week. It's going to be a long day for me doing this, but nonetheless, it's the way we got to do it. It's the best way to do it with the holiday this week and everything else. So this would be the first time, again, the first of two shows this week. This would be our first, obviously, today. This football blitz show coming at you here on this Tuesday. I hope your week is treating you well. For us in the Northeast, a lot of us got snowed in yesterday. A lot of us very eager to get out of the house after the last couple of days where it's just been kind of hard to get around. So hope your week is treating you well and you all have had safe travels and such. And a lot of people will be traveling tomorrow. So we extend our thoughts to you all as you're about to embark on your holiday travels. Be safe. All right, so here we are. It's unusual to have a football show as the first show of the week, but that's the way we did. We did this the same way last year, and I thought it was a good thing to do. I think it's the easiest thing to do, and with the football games kind of all starting up Thursday and such, it's a good idea to do this. The only drawback is, and I have this in the show description today, but obviously there is no college football playoff rankings. They aren't going to come out till tonight, so we won't be able to discuss those latest rankings before we obviously get to this weekend. So unfortunately, that's the only drawback. But you know what? You can't have everything, and I don't anticipate much change there anyway. So I don't think if you're going to have a week where you can't really discuss it, this is going to be the week. So, outside of talking about the playoff rankings, we're going to do everything we usually do here on the show. We're going to look back at last weekend in the NFL and college football, look ahead to this week, including all the Thanksgiving games, all the special holiday events, holiday games that are going to be taking place. We'll talk about all those. We'll do all that. And then we'll do some mailbag stuff at the end of the show, which we did not do on last Friday's football blitz, but we will do that here today because we will have a little bit more time. There isn't going to be as much to talk about on the college football side. More or less, we'll be previewing this weekend because it's going to be such a big weekend. That's probably going to determine the playoff. Probably going to determine how things fall into place in the college football playoff in my mind. So we'll be doing a lot with that, but it's not going to be, we don't really have a lot to talk about. We really don't. Even the NFL, really, if I'm being honest, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. We'll obviously go over all the games and such, but this weekend kind of, we've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks about clarity, and we all thought we'd get it earlier, and about a week or so ago, it didn't look like we were gonna get that. Well, I think now I can say that maybe I was a little too quick with that assumption, because now it's starting to look like we're going to have a little bit of clarity, and right on time as usual. Usually around week 12, that's when you start to get a look at really who's truly in contention and who has a really good chance at making it. And, a week or two ago, I didn't think that was going to be the case this year. I thought we were going to have one of those weird years. Well, what a difference a week makes. It's kind of been going back and forth, We thought we'd have some clarity earlier. We didn't get, and then everything kind of changed over the course of a week. And then now, once again, things have changed. So, again, it's a week to week thing, but right now it's looking like you kind of have an idea of what the playoff picture is at this particular juncture. So, obviously we'll talk about all that. We'll do all the usual NFL stuff, all the usual college football stuff. We'll do again, mailbag at the end of the show. We won't do a lot, but we'll do a little bit. We're going to try to keep this as short as possible. But again, I do want to give you a little bit more than I did on Friday, because even if this is the first show of two today, I also want to make sure that we don't just fly through a show and not give you essentially your time's worth, if you will. So even though we don't have a lot to do today in terms of like content, because all we're going to really do is set up the Thanksgiving game, briefly look back at the NFL this past weekend, because there really wasn't a whole lot of big development, I don't think. It was an okay week. It just wasn't a whole lot of big development, not like last week. We'll be moving pretty quickly, I think, through everything today. So in light of that, I want to give you all a little bit extra in terms of the mailbag because of that. So, all right. So, all that being said, let's get going here as always. Because, well, not just because. Okay, I'm winding down the show already. You can tell I'm already ready for the holiday. My brain's on vacation. All right, if you'd like to contribute to the show and have your voice heard, you can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Make sure to use the hashtag itspotlight411 or hashtag itsfootballblitz. Or you can create your own hashtag as long as it starts with hashtag ITS. And also as long as it's not disrespectful or insulting or offensive. That's all we ask. You can also find us on Facebook. Make sure you search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. Make sure you like our page upon finding it. So now with that in mind, we can get going here. Okay, and got this. I posted the social media links, so we're good to go there. All right, we can go right into it. As I said, we'll do what we usually do. We'll look back at last week in the NFL and college football, and then look at this week, the Thanksgiving games, all that kind of stuff. And again, we're going to move pretty quick, and not because we want to, although we do, but because sometimes you have weeks where there's not a lot to go on. And we're going to, again, most of the NFL, we're going to be more in line with setting the stage for what's to come rather than talking about what's already happened. So. And then the same thing with college football, really, talking more about what's to come instead of what's about to happen, because there's some big things coming up this weekend that really are going to, that I think will really go a long way in determining some positioning and in college football positioning in terms of the playoffs, and the NFL positioning in terms of seeds, and might put the final nail in some teams. As far as some teams' playoff chances. So we'll talk all about that. But let's start again, as we always do with the NFL, as we look back at Week 11. Hard to believe, huh? Which started last Thursday with a Saints-Panthers game, which we already talked about, which was a big win for the Panthers to get them to 4-6, tied with the Saints, right up there with the Buccaneers and such. So good. It was a big win for the Panthers. We already talked about that game. Now, let's get the easy games out of the way. The Steelers took care of business against the Browns 24-9, as they should. So that moves them to 5-5. And again, we talked about this. If the Steelers could get the job done as they should, if you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, okay, that's half the battle. And they knew that the Ravens were going into the week set up to play the Cowboys. There's a good chance the Cowboys beat the Ravens. Which they did. We'll talk about that in a moment. That would set the Steelers up to be back within a tie, into a tie for first place. So that's how things can change and ebb and flow. But the Steelers took care of their business. The Lions took care of theirs in a tough, gritty kind of game against the Jaguars, 26-19. You knew Jacksonville would come out and play. They did. Lions moved to 6-4. So again, beating a team that, even though they're competitive and they're not a horrible team, that you should beat. Lions took care of business. Giants, again, and same thing with the Giants. You're playing a team in the Bears that's going to probably that you should beat. And they did that, 22-16. It was a dominant game for the Giants, even though the score doesn't in any way look like that. They looked good in this game. It wasn't particularly pretty, but you got the job done, and they looked good in doing it in terms of their offensive, in terms of their offense. So, Giants get the job done. Patriots, again, get the job done. Playing a 49er team, game you should win. Get the job done. All right, so those are the games that really had nothing going for them. All right, all these teams had the better teams won, as they should. Now let's go around and look at the games that had major significance. As I mentioned, the Cowboys beating the Ravens. With the Steelers win, that moves the Steelers into a tie with the Ravens at 5-5. Cowboys, once again, looked extremely good. Dak Prescott, 3 touchdowns again. Ezekiel Elliott, just a good, solid win for the Cowboys as they, beat the Steelers. They beat the Ravens. Cowboys are in good shape. They're 9-1. They're 4-1 at home. They're 9-1. The only reason, look, they're I think 2 more wins away from probably clinching home field. So they're in good shape. Just a dominant win for the Cowboys and again, the Ravens, they've gotten themselves in a decent position here, despite everything that they've been through. It is not going to be easy, no, but they're in a good position. They got to feel good about their position, sure. But But again, when they go up against a team that's going to be able to score even off their defense. Again, the best offenses will score. They will find a way to score. I don't care how good your defense is. Your job is to try to put up some points to equal that. The Ravens offense has been a problem all season long. They didn't have an awful game, but they didn't have a good game, and they're not. And I don't know if they're going to be capable of having a good game this year. It hasn't been that kind of year. They just never have clicked. And in this game, they showed that. And the Cowboys, were able to score over 20 points on a very good Ravens defense, and that's because they have a lot of playmakers. And if you have a lot of playmakers, you can beat a good defense. You can score on a good defense, no matter how good it is. And in this game, the Ravens defense wasn't as good as they usually are. So that you add that to the fact that you have a team that's going to be able to score on a good defense anyway, and this is what you get. You get a Cowboy win. So it's a big win for the Cowboys and a tough loss for the Ravens. A monumental win for the Colts over the Titans, 24-17, knocks the Titans down to 5-6, moves the Colts into second place. They were in light of last night's game, which we'll talk about in a few moments, moves them a game back of the Texans. So this race is far from over. That was a huge swing. It's very important because you beat a division rival, you jump above them. And it was a good confidence builder, I think, if you're the Colts. You won 2 in a row. They got off to a good start for once. They didn't have to dig themselves out of a hole. Defense did great things away. I think it was a great game for the Colts all around. It was probably their best effort of the season all around. Now, Tennessee had nothing. I got to give Tennessee credit. Look, I didn't think they'd be as good as they are to be in this position. They beat a lot of bad teams, sure, but you could tell that they've gained confidence. Marcus Mariota's been great. DeMarco Murray's been great. I think Tennessee is a couple pieces away. I think Tennessee next year is going to be a team. We said this a couple years ago. We all thought they would be a more competitive team. They never materialized into that, but I think they're on the precipice now. I think you're seeing some strides, much like the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're seeing some strides here with the Titans, and they're still alive here, very much so, very much so. But obviously losing this game hurts them because the Colts kind of leapfrogged them. So Bills with a big win over the Bengals, an ugly game that really, this is a terrible game. But they got it done, 16-12. It was a big win for the Bills to get them to 500, so they're still up there with that pack of 500 teams. For the Bengals, I think this finished them off. I know mathematically you're going to look at this and go, well, the Ravens and the Steelers are both 5-5, and the Bengals are only 3-6-1. Their game out. I just don't see it. Green got cut off, and the Bengals lost. Again, we talked about their body language. It looks like they finally broke mentally after all these years of having these decent regular seasons and then going to win the playoffs. It's almost like a why bother kind of thing. They just don't look the same this year. They're not even giving you the good regular season consistent play. I don't like the way the Bengals have been playing all season long. I don't like the Bengals to do much of anything this year. I think this is the year you're going to see some significant changes to Cincinnati, probably starting with the firing of Marvin Lewis. And we'll talk more about that later because, this is a team that has had some great regular seasons and nothing comes out of it. And now it looks like the team has just kind of folded a little bit. But it's a big win for the Bills here. Big win for the Bills, especially on the road. Probably the biggest win of the weekend, I think. Because it's so unexpected. The Buccaneers beating the Chiefs 19-17. Again, not a very good quality game in terms of quality of play, but still great defense by both sides. The Chiefs came in red hot. They had in 7 in a row. They had been on a streak. They were in their true midseason form. Tampa had come in, I think, winning 2 in a row. And Tampa's done a good job on the road this year. They're 4-1 on the road. We've seen that with a couple of teams who are doing better on the road, which is odd. But it was a big win for Tampa because that moves them to 5-5. That puts them right behind Atlanta. That jumps them over the Panthers and the Saints. So that's huge. That's a huge win for Tampa Bay, a team that we all thought were going to be a sweeper team, much like the Raiders, who have become more than a sweeper team at this point. Big win for them, and it's a tough loss for the Chiefs because of the circumstances, but they're still in very good shape, so they don't have too reason to worry as long as they can get off a win this week. Speaking of another big win, Vikings, who had been reeling, had lost 4 in a row. They come in, they're at home playing Arizona, who is good no matter where you play, but this year they're struggling on the road. They had to put up some points in this game. This was not the typical Vikings win that you'd seen this year, given the situation with injuries to the quarterback and to Peterson, and this is not the typical Vikings formula to win a game this year. Usually it's run the ball effectively, play good defense. Well, in this game, they had to throw the ball a little bit, and they put some major points on the board. 30 points put on the board by the Vikings. They beat the Cardinals 30-24. It was their offense that really won them this game, more so than their defense, which is odd for the Vikings. But hey, at this point, a win's a win. That gets you to 6-4, still up there with the Lions. And it keeps them in play. I mean, they needed this because another loss kind of brings them down to further down the pack. It's a big win for the Vikings. They need this. Maybe they can build some confidence coming out of this, especially with their offense. And for the Cardinals, this is a devastating loss because you see what Seattle's doing, and they're kind of starting to run away with things. And then you look at the way that things are materializing with the NFC East, with the Giants and the Redskins doing well on top of the Cowboys. Really, you're looking at this in both the NFC and the AFC. You have one division in the AFC is the AFC West, and the NFC is the NFC East, where so many teams are doing well that you're not going to have a wild card spot available. It's going to be either win your division or you don't make it. And that's what the Cardinals have to be seeing right now is, wow, you know what? We're 4-5-1 in Week 11, and the Seahawks are on a roll right now. I don't know if I'm seeing a roll. For me, I think the Cardinals might be done this year. And we also want to obviously extend well wishes to Bruce Arians, who was hospitalized for chest pains. So far, the news seems to be okay, that he's going to be okay. But obviously, we want to give our thoughts and prayers to him and his family and hope everything goes well for him, because that was scary. He was hospitalized, and he's a great man, great coach, and we hope and wish him the best. But tough loss for the Cardinals in this game, and a huge win for the Vikings. Dolphins 14-10 over the Rams. The Rams now at 4-6. I think you can take them out of play now. There's no way they're going to make it given the way the NFC is going right now. I think they're done. Dolphins at 6-4 are very, very much alive, especially in light of the fact you look at all these 5-5 teams, and they're very much alive. They can keep winning games. Very much alive. I mean, think about it. They're only a game back of teams like the Broncos and the Chiefs. The Dolphins. I mean, that's crazy. And they find ways to win. It wasn't a great effort, but it was a good enough effort, and they found ways to win. So, hey, big win for the Dolphins. As I mentioned, the Seahawks are starting to put things away. They furthered their lead in their division, and in terms of a decent seed, with a 26-15 win over the Eagles, who now dropped to 5-5. Again, you look at what's going on in the NFC East with the Giants, the Redskins, obviously the Cowboys. They're starting to all kind of pull away here, and somebody's going to be the odd one out, and the Eagles look like they could be that. Again, it's going to be one of those cases. Whoever rattles off 2 or 3 in a row, wins 3 out of 4. Whoever does those things is gonna get a playoff spot as far as these wild cards go in both leagues. And the Eagles need to do that in the next couple weeks or they're done. They're still alive, but they're cutting it pretty close. Seahawks just did their thing. Typical Seahawks. Great defense, did just enough to win. Eagles put a good effort here. This offensively, Seattle just shut them down when it mattered. They couldn't really do a whole lot of anything, and that's just the way it goes when you face Seattle. So Seattle moves to 7-2-1. They're 5-0 at home. Obviously, the Eagles going into Seattle is going to be a tough thing, and it was. Most devastating loss had to be the Packers, though, I think, who lost to the Redskins 42-24. First of all, Redskins, great effort on both sides of the football. Great effort. Not much you can say there. For the Packers, they look like they I'm going to be honest with you all, okay? They made a great effort late they made a great effort late, but their defense folded. Their defense unequivocally folded in this game. I think there's something to be encouraged by if you're a Packer fan, that the offense looked better this week. It looked like they found more of a rhythm. They didn't get as much out of the gate as you would have wanted to, but still, for the most part during the game, you have to be happy with the fact that it looked like They had more of a rhythm. Um, however, however, defensively it was bad, especially in the fourth quarter. Defensively, they looked like they gave up, and it's the bottom line. It was just a bad defensive effort, and the Packers now dropped to 4-6. They're 1-4 on the road. You look at this again. You got to look at the picture here now. This is what you're looking at here. You're going into week 12 now. The Lions and the Vikings are at the top of the division at 6-4. So again, you're 2 games back. That's not impossible, but the way that you've been playing, and how inconsistent you've been as a team, okay, it's highly unlikely you're going to win every game the rest of the way. All right, so you're accounting for another loss here, that gets you 7 losses. I just don't see the math working out. If you're 4-6 right now, I don't see the math working out unless you're like in the AFC North with the Steelers and the Ravens, where where the top 2 teams are 5-5. I mean, that might work out for you 4-6, but not in the NFC right now. It doesn't. Not in the NFC. Not the way the NFC East is materializing. I mean, this is just not enough spots. It's not enough spots. So in my mind, and even though mathematically you might say, I really don't think that this is the case, I think the Packers are done. Just like I think the Cardinals are done. You're going to look at their records and go, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they're done. Just like I think the Bengals are done in the AFC. You look at the records, you're not going to think that, but you look at the body language, the way they played, the mathematics, the way that the rest of the playoff picture has developed, and what it looks like over these next couple of weeks, what you think it's going to look like, and you judge the fact that you don't think these teams are going to win every game. It doesn't work out. It really doesn't. You need a lot to go right, and I think those teams I just mentioned, the Bengals in the AFC, the Packers and the Cardinals in the NFC, I don't think that they have enough going for them right now. Now, this week could tell that story. Like I said, last week we got a little bit of insight into, well, I think we got a little bit more clarity in terms of the playoff picture. And I didn't think we would, but we did, because of the way some of these wins and losses have developed. This week could give us could really give us a full concrete look at what we're looking at over these next 4 or 5 weeks, the final weeks of the season. I think some of these teams are going to be finished completely off this week. The Packers might be one of them. The Cardinals might be one of them. The Bengals might be one of them. Even the Colts really could be one of them if things play out a certain way this weekend with the Texans and then their game against the Steelers. So, I think you're going to look at the end of this weekend, we might look at this and go, all right, we lost officially 3 or 4 of these teams are just not going to be able to make it. And right now, like I said, I've labeled 3 teams as teams I've written off: Packers, Cardinals, and the Bengals. Does that mean they can't make it? No, it does not. But again, you take everything into account. I think it's okay to write them off at this point, and then just be surprised when if they do pull it off, because I just don't. There's a lot. To me, it's just too big of a hurdle for those 3 teams right now. So, one more game to look at, and that's the Monday night game between the Texans and the Raiders, taking place from Mexico City. It wasn't a good game to watch, to be honest. It was a fun environment, but the score, you're going to look at the score and go, wow. It was an odd game, because as I'm watching this game last night, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, boy, with the altitude, it looked odd. Like the way that the ball was traveling, it looked very odd. Like some of the passes, a lot of the passes just looked like floaters each and every time they went up. I don't know if I'm the only one that this seemed like. I don't know if I'm the only one that noticed this, but it seemed like that. It was a back and forth game. You look at the game and you think, oh, it's a fun game, but I don't know, something just kept taking me out of the game. Like the way it was being played, and again, the way every pass kind of looked like it could be picked off at any moment. I don't know. This was weird to me, but it was a big win for the Raiders, who now moved to 8-2 with their 27-20 win last night with the Texans. Huge loss for the Texans, because the Colts move in a game of them. You still have the Titans right there, so the big, loss for the Texans here. But the Raiders right now have moved out in front. The Raiders right now have guaranteed themselves a winning season. You look at this, you figure 2 more wins will lock up a playoff spot for them, obviously. So good shape for the Raiders. Very good shape. Falcons, Broncos, Jets, and Chargers all had byes. All right, so that's the story last week. Some devastating losses. Again, some teams I feel you could write off just based on the circumstances at this point. Doesn't mean they're done, but their chances are very, very slim. There were a few big developments, not a whole lot, but still some interesting developments. And now we set the stage for week 12 and Thanksgiving weekend. And this is the big turning point. This is the transition from positioning to from positioning to stretch run, meaning that you're now you get to this weekend. This is the transition. You kind of turn the whole league around and go, all right, now it's about locking up the playoff spot. Now it's about closing the deal, making the playoffs, closing the deal, improving your standing, putting yourself in a position to get to a Super Bowl. That's what this week turns everything around on. Now it's no longer, hey guys, you know what? We still got some time. Hey guys, let's get this together. No, you do not have time. It is crunch time now in the league, starting with this week. As we enter this week's the transition to the final portion of the season. And again, what I think will be a weekend that will give us a lot more clarity, some formal clarity. Last week got some clarity, yes. But I think this is the weekend that you pick off some of these teams, weed them out completely, and get your full, complete playoff picture, even though we already kind of see the way it's materialized and what the situation is on both sides, where there's a very high likelihood that you might get 3 teams out of the AFC West, 3 teams out of the NFC East, that kind of thing. We've already seen how these things could shape up. I think after this weekend, it kind of forms it up and solidifies it more and knocks some of these teams out of the mix here and gives us some and some teams are going to have a really good chance to improve their standing and have some, and again, get some good footing and put themselves in very good position here as we approach as we enter the final stretch. So we're going to start to some big Thanksgiving games. All 3 of these games have significance. That's something that you cannot say every year that this happens, that you get 3 games on Thanksgiving Day that all will have significance to the playoffs. All of them. So this should be a great game, great day of football in the league. The first game on Thursday will start at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. It's the 6-4 Vikings, 2-3 on the road, 6-4 Lions, 4-1 at home. A battle for first place in the NFC North. This is a big game, especially given the circumstances. The Lions have had a lot of momentum. They're on a streak right now. The Vikings finally ended their 4-game losing streak, I should say. Got more out of their offense than they've gotten all season long. The Lions, we all know, is more of an offensive team. Matthew Stafford's been great this year. This is a chance for the Lions here to prove to people that they're in this thing. And this game, and if you're the Vikings, this is a chance to prove that last week was not a mirage, that you're really, really back, and that your offense can pull this off, and that you don't need to rely always on defense in the running game. This is a big week for their confidence. This is a big week for the Lions and their confidence, but also for their true chances to make the playoffs here. And if you're the Lions, you look at this too. The Vikings might be getting Peterson back in December, so you got a chance here. You want to get out in front of them in case they do get him back, and then all of a sudden they start charging. You want to be the team out in front. I like the way the Lions have been playing. I don't trust the Vikings. I know what they did last week, and that was a big win for them over a quality team. Yes, okay, I'll give them that. But I do not like the way they played since the bye. Last week, I don't know if they just got lucky. I don't know if it was just a lapse on defense, whatever, and they took advantage of it. I don't know. But for me, that until they do that 2 weeks in a row, I can't believe that that's the way the Vikings are going to play the rest of the season. And I'm going to choose to believe that they're going to continue to play the way that they played for this entire season, which is trying to run the football and just play good defense. And that's the formula that got them to 5-0 at one point. And then, of course, they went into a 4-game losing streak after their bye at the same time. So I'm going to pick the Lions here. and what I think will be a very close game. But I'm going to pick the Lions here because I like what I've seen of them over these last 4 weeks versus what I've seen from the Vikings. So, and momentum's especially at home. Momentum's a big thing. 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. The 6-3-1 Redskins, 2-1, 2-1-1 on the road. 9-1 Cowboys, 4-1 at home. Hey, if you want to make it interesting, if you're the Redskins, try to win this game. And look, this is going to be an offensive game, I think. I know the Cowboy defense, both teams have good defenses, okay? But I think this is going to be an offensive game. I think both teams are going to open it up. You're going to see a high-scoring, in the 30s kind of game. It's going to be a fun game, very fun game, I think. I like the Cowboys, though. The Cowboys have answered every single bell. They played some good teams. I know the Redskins are very explosive, but they're at home. They're playing with a ton of confidence. I just like the Cowboys here. I like the Cowboys to get done. I think I think they have a little bit more, and I think the key too is they have a little bit more going in the running game than the Redskins do. Ezekiel Elliott's been great. I think that's a key difference. So I'm going to go with Dallas over Washington in what should be another close affair on Thursday. So the Lions and the Cowboys, both traditional Thanksgiving Day participants, and both in really, really good games that have major implications for not only the division but the entire standings of the NFC. And you get a little taste of the AFC in prime time at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time at NBC from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. You have the 5-5 Steelers, 2-3 on the road, 5-5 Colts, 3-2 at home. This is a monumental game for the Indianapolis Colts. If they could pull this game, if they win this game, okay, now they're at home, so you like that. They come in winning 2 in a row versus the Steelers, who have only won the one against that, and that was against the Browns. If you can win this game, if you're the Colts, you win this game, this gives you a ton of momentum. This gives you a lot of confidence knocking off a team like the Steelers. And obviously it'd be devastating to the Steelers. If he doesn't play, they don't have a chance. They don't. They don't have a chance. Because they're going to have to make this game into an offensive kind of game. Now, the Steelers are a good defensive team, yes. But the way that the Colts play, if the Colts play, I think they can get around, especially with Andrew Luck being a mobile quarterback. I think they can get around a lot of what the Steelers throw at them. And I've seen the Steelers against quarterbacks like Andrew Luck, a mobile quarterback, a quarterback that can scramble and make things happen. And they haven't always fared well with that. So, look, if they have Andrew Luck, I think they have a very good chance to keep this game close and have a chance late. If they don't, this game's going to be ugly and it's going to be terrible, and the Steelers are going to win. So this is a hard game for me to pick. I'm going to assume that Andrew Luck plays. And in light of that, I'm still going to pick the Steelers. I just don't think it'll be a blowout win. The Colts do have a chance, yes, especially if Luck plays. But either way, I have to go with the Steelers because I think the Steelers are the better team. I think they have more going, simply because they can play defense. The Colts defense struggles. Sometimes they've surprised you, yes, and they manage to find a way to get it done. But for the most part, they're just not a good defensive team. And we know they can score, but at the same time, you got to be able to stop the other team from scoring. And I don't think they can really do that. So Steelers for me, just simply because of the defense. That's a big game. That's a huge game. Now we flip the script to Sunday. And the first game on Sunday to look at, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. 5-6 Titans, 2-3 on the road, 2-8 Bears, 2-2 home. That's why that Steelers game is big for the Colts, because if they lose that game, the Titans win, you're right back to square one again. So that's a big game for the Colts to keep the Titans behind them. And if you're the Titans, to keep your playoff chances alive, you have to beat the Bears. You've already proven you're better than them. Jay Cutler's not coming back this year, so you got to win this game. Yeah, whether you're on the road or not. And I know playing at Soldier Field at this time of year might be tough, but you have to figure out a way to win this game. I'm picking the Titans here because the last couple of weeks I've come to see that they are a much improved team. But they cannot take the Bears lightly, even though they are injury plagued and completely down and out. They cannot take them lightly. They have got to take this seriously and get out to a good start and put the Bears away early and win this game. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on CBS from New Era Field in Buffalo, New York. You got the 2-8 Jaguars, 1-4 on the road, 5-5 Bills, 2-2 at home. An opportunity for the Bills to get another win, get them to 6-5. They have to rattle off some wins here based on the way that they played in the midseason, which was not good. Again, you can't take Jacksonville lightly. We know they're going to compete. We know they're going to play well. It should be a I wouldn't be surprised if it's a game like last week against the Bengals where it's a low-scoring affair here. I like the Bills to win it. I think they have an advantage in Tyrod Taylor because I think Tyrod Taylor, again, it's kind of like it's kind of how I feel the Steelers are against a mobile quarterback. I don't like the Jaguars defense against a mobile quarterback. I think they get easily exploited with that. So they have an advantage there, the Bills. So I would let Tyrod do a lot more, run the ball a little bit more. I'd let him do a lot of the playmaking himself. If they do that, I think they have a good advantage there. So I like the Bills to win this game. And it's a game I think they have to have. Otherwise, I don't think they have a chance. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland. The 3-6-1 Bengals, 1-4 on the road at the 5-5 Ravens, 3-2 at home. A big game for the Bengals. It's a must-win. They lose this game, and this is where I said you might be able to completely weed a team out of the playoff picture. If the Bengals lose this game, they're done. They're done because they fall further behind the Ravens. Again, the math wouldn't work out. It'd be 3-7-1. I just don't see it happening. So this is a must-win for the Bengals for their playoff hopes. It's a must-win. And for Baltimore coming off a loss, and you look at the Steelers, again, you got to try to win as many games as you can here. So it's kind of a must-win for them too. I mean, these three teams, Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, every game's a must-win until you clear your rivals. So I like the Ravens here, not because of their offense, because obviously their offense has been a struggle here, because of their defense. Bengals have struggled at times to score, and with facing a good defense like the Ravens, that's going to make it even harder to score. And the Ravens, even in their offensive problems, have found ways to put points on the board. So I think they'll be able to do that. So I like the Ravens here. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on Fox from Georgia Dome in Atlanta, Georgia. The 4-5-1 Cardinals, 1-3 on the road at the 6-4 Falcons, 2-2 at home. It's a must-win for the Cardinals, just like the Bengals. Again, they lose this game, I think that officially takes them out. I mean, right now I think they're out, like the Bengals, but this will officially take them out, I think. So it's a must-win for them, and they're playing a very good team in Atlanta, who again has played better on the road, which is shocking because they usually dominate at home, but they're 2-2 at home still. So, and they put up a lot of points. They're going to be a tough chore to defend because of how good their offense has been this year. That's going to be the key. The Arizona defense is going to have to step up and contain the offense of the Atlanta Falcons, because they lose the game. I know Arizona's going to put up points on Atlanta's defense. They are. It's not a bad defense, but they're going to put up points on it. The key is, can you contain Atlanta enough to be able to, or you're going to let them do what they've done to a lot of teams, which is just dominate and be explosive and go up in the high 20s, low 30s in scoring, and then that's it. If you let them explode on offense, you're done. So that's the key. You have to contain them. If Arizona doesn't contain them, they lose. I'm picking the Falcons here because I don't know if Arizona can contain them. So I'm going with the Falcons. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on Fox from First Energy Stadium in Cleveland, Ohio. 7-3 Giants, 2-2 on the road. 0-11 Browns, 0-5 at home. Giants easily. We all know why. Browns stink. And it's a nice game. It's a good game for the Giants because it, again, gets you to 8-3. Looking pretty good for a playoff spot. Keep wearing off these wins. So it's a nice, real easy game for the Giants here. Just do what they handle their business, and they'll be in good shape. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on Fox from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. The 4-6 Rams, 3-2 on the road. At the 4-6 Saints, 2-8 at home. And the 2-8 home, 2-3 at home. I apologize. I mean, look, both teams the Rams have worse playoff hopes than the Saints do. So if they lose this game, it does officially knock them out. It really would. But honestly, if the Saints lose this, I think this knocks them out too. I don't care what the record is. You look at Atlanta, and you look at the Panthers are now up there now, Buccaneers. I think this would put the Saints in the position that the Bengals, the Packers, and the Bengals, the Packers. Who's the other team I was thinking of? Bengals, Packers, and who? Wow, I can't remember. The Cardinals. The Bengals, Packers, and the Cardinals. It'll put the Saints in the position that those three teams are in going into this weekend, where next week they need a win just to keep their faint hopes alive. So it's a big game for the Saints. And I do think they'll win it. I do think the Saints will win this here. The Rams can defend, but they've struggled really on offense, and the Saints don't have a problem with that. And a team that struggles to score against is a good team for the Saints to face because they don't have to worry about their defense, which is not very good anyway. So Saints should have no problem here, I think. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on Fox from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. The 1-9 49ers, 0-4 on the road at the 6-4 Dolphins, 4-1 at home. Again, Dolphins have got such a soft schedule. They're just rattling off wins here. The Dolphins might get in the playoffs just based on their schedule. I mean, they've had beaten some good teams. They beat the Steelers early on. They beat the Bills. I mean, they've had beaten some good teams. But, you know, the way it's playing for the Dolphins here, they're just taking advantage of the schedule. That's what happened a couple years ago with them. They snuck up on everybody, and they snuck into the playoffs. So, you know, they're just finding ways to win games. Granted, they're playing some bad teams, but hey, and they should win this game too. Easily. The Dolphins should win this game easily. They can defend. Their offense isn't always great, but they can, you know, they can get the job done. And, you know, 49ers are an offense that really scores the ball really, really well. So defensively, they should be able to keep the 49ers they should keep the 49ers low in terms of scoring defensively. And look, the Dolphins won't have to put too much on the board to beat the 49ers. So Dolphins should win this game easily, and then it gets to 7-4 if you can believe it. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on CBS from NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. It's the 4-6 Chargers, 1-4 on the road at the 6-4 Texans, 5-0 at home. I already think the Chargers are done, but if they lose this game, that's the official kind of knockout punch. And if they end up beating the Texans here, that obviously is a huge turn of events for the Colts and the Titans. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But Houston's been very tough to beat at home this year. I haven't always bought into Houston, much like I haven't bought into Tennessee, but they both kind of impressed me over these last few weeks. Even yesterday in defeat, which, you know, look, they got screwed over on some calls last night against the Raiders. They really did. Some of the ball spots late in that game were terrible. But the bottom line is Houston looked good in that game last night for the most part. Houston's a good team, and this is going to be a close game. This could be like a field goal in terms of difference in this game. So I'm going to go with the Texans because they've been tough to beat at home, and I think both these teams are pretty evenly matched. I really do. I think both these teams are evenly matched, so it's anybody's game. I'm going off of this home field. I'm going to go with the Texans. All right, now the 4 o'clock window games. 4:05 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. 7-2 Seahawks, 2-1 on the road at the 5-5 Buccaneers, who are 1-4 at home. Tampa has had a tendency over the years to upset some teams at home. Most of the time, they're in their division. This would be a monumental upset, and this is the kind of upset that could propel you into the playoffs. They're 5-5. A win here gets them to 6-5. They'd keep pace with the Falcons. That would put them keep them away from the Panthers and the Saints. So this is a big game for Tampa to kind of make a statement here. Unfortunately, they're playing a Seattle team that I don't think anybody wants to play right now. They're red hot. They got their defense going. Their offense is getting better, kind of doing its thing. Unfortunately for Tampa, I think this is a terrible draw for them because you're playing Seattle at the time when they're at their best. So I'm going with Seattle here, but boy, if Tampa could pull this out, wow, would that be good? Wow. If they lose, they're not completely out of it, but it'd be a blow. It'd be a definite blow. 4:25 p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Oakland Coliseum in Oakland, California. 4-6 Panthers, 1-3 on the road at the 8-2 Raiders, 3-2 at home. Raiders come off a big win. They've won 4 in a row. They are red hot right now on both offense and defense. Everything's kind of going their way right now. Panthers have gotten things together a little bit over the last couple weeks. There's still a problem with closing games. They get out to good starts, kind of the opposite of last year. They get out to good starts and they fall apart late. You know, they can't seem to close the deal, and that's going to be dangerous against a team like the Raiders, who have made a habit this year out of having good fourth quarters and either putting teams away or coming back. So that doesn't bode. If things play out the way they have this season, you're going to have the Panthers with the lead and the Raiders charging and winning the game late. I like the Raiders here. It's a road game. I know that they played it's a road game for the Panthers, but they've struggled with. I know the Raiders haven't played as well at home for some reason, but still they're playing good football. Again, the Panthers have a tendency to struggle late in games and closing them out, while the Raiders excel at coming back or closing out games. That's a key thing. That's a mental thing. And look, the Panthers did everything they could to give up that game to the Saints. So I think I don't like, even though they won a couple games in a row, I don't like the way they're playing. While I like the way the Raiders are playing, and being at home, I'm going with Oakland. 4:25 p.m. Eastern game, CBS, MetLife Stadium, East Rutherford, New Jersey. 8-2 Patriots, 5-0 on the road. 3-7 Jets, 1-3 at home. Jets are going to play for pride. Jets are going to play competitive football here. Fitzpatrick's going to get the start. We'll see how that does. I don't think it really makes a difference who starts because it's going to be the same. Look, even though the Jets are going to try to be competitive, they're going to do everything that they can here. The Patriots are just too good. They're just too good. New England all the way here. 8:30 p.m. Eastern game on NBC for Mile High Sports Story Field at Mile High in Denver, Colorado. A great game. We had this game already once before. We're going to have it again. It's a great game. The 7-3 Chiefs, 3-2 on the road. At the 7-3 Broncos, 4-1 at home. Great game. Great game. This should be a good game. Chiefs coming off a loss. Broncos coming off a bye. It's going to be a good game. Offensively, both teams are pretty equal, I think. And defensively, I give the Broncos the edge because of the pressure that they can bring. Although I think the Chiefs have it better in the secondary. I predict a very close game. And honestly, it's one of those games. A lot of these games are this way. A lot of these games, you're making picks more momentum and home field this week because a lot of these games are even in terms of skill level. You're matching up teams very well this week. So I like the Broncos here. They're at home. You know, I think I'll go with that. I'll go with the Broncos just because they're at home. And, you know, again, you can say they're coming off a bye. Maybe they don't have as much momentum, but the Chiefs don't have much momentum either because they're coming off a loss. So I'll go with the Broncos here. You know, the pressure should be a difference maker and being at home. So Broncos. And then we got a great Monday night game, which, again, could be much like with the Cardinals and the Bengals, could finish off a team here. 4-6 Packers, 4-4, 1-4 on the road. At the 5-5 Eagles, who are 4-0 at home. This game from Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, PA. So, okay, Packers have been terrible on the road, 1-4. Eagles are unbeaten at home. Eagles coming off a loss. Packers coming off another loss. Again, Packers showed some signs on offense last week, better rhythm. Defensively, they were a mess. Eagles have been a little bit. I think the Eagles, even though they're 5-5, have been a little bit more consistent than the Packers have been this year. You know what you're going to get with them. I'm picking the Eagles. I told you, I think the Packers are done. I think this will finish them off. I think the Eagles will be finished off this week. I think the Bengals will be finished off this week. I think the Cardinals might be finished off this week. And then the Chargers will be officially finished off. So I think you're going to lose a lot of teams this week in terms of their playoff chances. So I like the Eagles here. They've been great at home. They're coming off a loss. I don't think they've lost 2 in a row all year. I don't think. If they have, they haven't done it recently. I think they've been the better team, the more consistent team. I'm going with the Eagles. So if all this materialized the way I think, some teams are gonna drop back. You look at some of these matchups, in division matchups. Some teams are gonna drop back. Some teams might be taken completely out of the picture. And some teams should further solidify their position. It's gonna be a huge Week 12 and a huge Thanksgiving Day of games, for sure. It's gonna be a great Week 12. Great Week 12. All right, we now jump to college football. Again, we don't have any playoff rankings, so we can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. Those don't come out till tonight, so we'll leave that alone. Although, as we look at what happened over the weekend, we already talked about last week with Louisville losing, so that's significant. That's probably the only significant change that you're going to see, in my mind, in the rankings. So I don't. I'm trying to pull this up here. Apologies. See anything else of true significance? I'm trying to look back here, make sure I missed anything. At last week's results. Again, Louisville's going to drop. Ohio State barely survived Michigan State, but they're not going to drop. They got through it. Clemson. Let's see. Oregon beat Utah, so they'll drop out. For State, Nebraska, Tennessee. Yeah, it's the only big significant move in the rankings is going to be Louisville. So that's the only big significant move, which Washington will move up. Penn State will move up. Wisconsin and Penn State will both move up. And Oklahoma and so on and so forth. So that sets you up for week 13. Now, week 13, this is a weekend that I think will determine the playoff rankings. Bearing any miracles in the last week of the season. Again, the championship games and such. But this is the weekend I think that will determine the playoff rankings. We still got 2 weeks left. You got week 14 and week 15, but I think this is the significant weekend. You have some great games. You have LSU, Texas A&M, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Thursday night on ESPN. That's a good game. Obviously, just playing for positioning, because neither one of those teams probably going to factor into the playoffs. But if you want me to make a pick, I like LSU there. Let's see, 3:30 p.m. Eastern game, Washington State. Obviously, Washington will probably be up to 5 at that point. This is a tough game. If Washington loses, they're not in play. It's a tough game for Washington. I think it's gonna be a close game. I think Washington will win it, but I think it's gonna be a tough game. Boise State Air Force, but I think Boise State's gonna win that, so I'm not even gonna highlight that game. Let's see what else. Big games of significance. Louisville will probably be Kentucky. So the big game, the game that everybody's been looking forward to all season long, the game of the year potentially in the regular season. Noon Eastern on ABC on Saturday. On Friday. Saturday, pardon me. Wow, where am I going? 10-1 Michigan, 10-1 Ohio State. The loser will not be in the playoff picture. I mean, unless something drastic happens, the loser will not be in the playoff picture. This is a significant game. This is a huge game. I like Michigan. I like Michigan's defense. Even though Ohio State has settled in at the quarterback position, I like Michigan. I like what I've seen from their defense. I like, and again, I didn't think they can get enough done offensively to get it done. So I like Michigan. I've liked Michigan since day one, so I think Michigan wins it. Let's see, outside of that, anything else? Auburn, Alabama. That's gonna be a 3:30 p.m. Eastern CBS. That's gonna be a game of significance. I mean, it's probably the last chance for Alabama to lose. Even though, again, they're not gonna lose. They're gonna win this game big. But theoretically, mathematically, for people, it's the last game you're looking at the schedule, going, well, they might have a chance. Even though a couple weeks ago I felt like it was their true last chance to lose. I don't think they're going to lose. Alabama's going to win. So, but, might be a game worth watching still. If you have some hopes for Colorado, they do have a tough game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox on Saturday with Utah. If they want to stay alive in the rankings, they got to win that game, and I do think they will. In terms of playoff position, that they got to win that game. I think they will, though. I think they will. So a couple of really good games. A couple of really, really good games on tap for this weekend, and significant games, because you figure Ohio State, Michigan, the loser of that game is probably not going to make it. So you knock one of them out. If Washington loses, that knocks them out. That opens doors for Penn State, Wisconsin. Maybe Louisville sneaks back into the picture again, opens the door. So it's just some significant stuff. And if Alabama ever lost to Auburn, now Alabama wouldn't fall out of the rankings, but that would obviously throw Auburn back into play. So some potential here. Should be a great weekend. Some big games in college football, along with some big games in the NFL. I mean, this is going to be a great football weekend, which Thanksgiving week usually is. Now after this is it. This is the end of the regular season. So this is significant. This is the end. You'll have some big games next week. You'll have Baylor and West Virginia. You have Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. Those might be significant in some ways. But this is it. Bearing any unforeseen thing, this weekend's going to determine the playoffs. It's going to determine the playoffs. So this is the end of the regular season. This is the end of it. We close the door on it. Next week, you have a couple conference championship games, which, depending on how things play this weekend, might have some significance, maybe not. And then that's it. So, you figure Alabama, even if Alabama loses, they're going to be in the playoff rankings at this point. Clemson wins, they'll probably be in. Ohio State or Michigan, winner of that game is going to get in. There's not enough time for the other one to play herself back in unless they like both teams that much. If Washington wins, they're probably the team that goes. So you're going to get either Washington, you're going to get probably Washington, Clemson, Alabama, and either Ohio State or Michigan, unless something drastic happens. So this weekend's going to determine it. It hasn't been the most dramatic ending because the last couple of weeks haven't been the most exciting. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you had that big weekend where a lot of teams that you didn't think would lose lost. But there wasn't as much change on the rankings as you thought. That shows you that really this committee probably looks at about 5 or 6 teams as truly worthy of being playoff teams this year. And that's probably why they didn't vote from that, All right, so we talked about all the games. We set up this weekend, which would be a great weekend in football in general, with college and NFL all having big games. The last weekend of the college football regular season and a big weekend in the NFL. With that being said, we'll now address some of your questions and comments that you've all sent in over the last week or so. Last week, guys and girls out there didn't send in too much. This week, you sent in a little bit more. So we will look at those right now, as I promised. Let's see here. What is your reaction to the NCAA's decision to order the Notre Dame to forfeit wins from 2012 and 2013? Well, first of all, they're going to appeal. And first of all, this is a bad thing for Notre Dame. This is a bad thing for Notre Dame. Notre Dame has prided itself on academics, and they don't like this. Again, though, it's and some people are really looking at this as maybe Brian Kelly should be fired for it because this is not Notre Dame like. Look, okay, listen, I can't. I'm not going to argue for Brian Kelly here because I've been very disappointed in how things have gone at Notre Dame under Brian Kelly. I expected a lot better. But I don't think it's all on Brian Kelly here. The whole academic department has to look at what's gone on here. My reaction is disappointment. My reaction is shock because this is Notre Dame we're talking about. My reaction is it's unfortunate. A lot of the things at Notre Dame that have happened over the last year have been unfortunate. You look at what happened early in the season with the legal issues and stuff. So it's sad because this is an institution that you don't usually see these things happen at. But look, sometimes even the institutions you don't expect these things happen at. So there's not much else I can say other than that. I don't. It's just very disappointing. All right, let's see what else here. Do you think there's any scenario at all that in which a team outside the current top 10 in the rankings makes the playoffs? No. There's not enough time. This is the last week of the regular season. For some reason, earlier when we started talking college football, I was feeling like there was another week for some reason because things have flown by so fast. But no, this is it. You got the conference championship games the week after. That's it. This is it. This is it. There's not enough time. Even if Alabama loses, they're still going to go. Auburn can't move their way back into play, even if it win over Alabama. Ohio State or Michigan's going to take a spot. Clemson's more than based on the fact that even when they lost a couple weeks ago, they didn't move out. Clemson's going to be in, providing they win. Washington's probably going to be in, providing they win. So, yeah, I don't see it. I just don't see it. Unless enough people in the committee have an about face and go, all of a sudden they like a certain team based on performance this week, which, again, I don't know how that would even work. So, yeah. I think what you see is what you get. Alabama, Clemson, providing they win. Washington, providing they win. And Michigan or Ohio State. That's your 4. Unless I will say this much, okay, and we've seen this before. If that Michigan-Ohio State game is a tough, classic game, like 3-point, 1-point kind of deal, maybe they do. We've seen that kind of stuff happen before. Maybe they do it. Now, look, if Washington loses their game, Okay? If Washington loses their game, maybe they do take both Michigan and Ohio State. I don't know if they'll put Louisville back in play after losing last week to Houston. It might be too soon. If that had happened early in the season, yeah, they might have been able to do it. But if Washington loses, okay, you figure. Let's say Alabama wins, Clemson wins. Alabama win or lose is going to be it anyway. You have Alabama, you have Clemson. Maybe they do put Ohio State, Michigan both in. Depends how much they like a team like Wisconsin or a team like Penn State. Depends how much they like those teams, assuming they win. If they like one of those teams, they'll put one of those teams in. If they don't, they might put Michigan, Ohio State in. It might. That is a possibility, especially if Washington loses. All right. A lot of these other questions are going to be NFL, which doesn't surprise me. Usually, more questions are NFL anyway. This one just came in, so I'll read this one right now. If Green Bay, if what you're saying is, if what you're thinking happens in Green Bay, Cincinnati, and Arizona all lose this weekend, and none of those teams make the playoffs, which of those coaches do you think will be fired, if any? I think Marvin Lewis will be fired. You're already starting to see the signs. The media is already calling. Media's been calling for a couple of years, but I think Marvin Lewis will be fired. I think Mike McCarthy will stay, but he'll be on the hot seat next year. And I think there'll be some changes there. Maybe they'll get with maybe they'll do something with the coordinators or something. I don't know. Mike McCarthy will stay. They'll give him another year after this. Bruce Arians will be fine. And look, he's going through a lot right now anyway, so I don't think. And we wish him the best. Bruce Arians won't get fired. He's set. So the only one I could see getting fired out of that bunch is Marvin Lewis. Now, I thought the only coach I could see getting fired across the league. I could see some other firings. If the Saints don't make it, I could see them finally parting ways with Sean Payton. I could see the Bears making changes again. I could see. I was just thinking of a team, and I forgot. Obviously, people are going to ask about the Colts. I don't think they'll fire Chuck Pagano, but I think they'll fire the the coordinators. I think they'll have to make changes. They have to sell something to the fan base. So, but yeah, I think the only one of the bunch that we were talking about that I could see getting fired is Marvin Lewis. So we'll have to see how that goes. Let's see. There was an article, at least today, about Ben Roethlisberger cautioning and warning Andrew Luck about being careful with his concussion. What do you think Andrew Luck should do on Thursday night? Okay, that's not a good question. That's not a good question. First of all, look, if Andrew Luck gets a clean bill of health from the doctor, then yeah, he should play. Now, look, the Steelers are a team that they're physical. You worry about him in this kind of against this kind of defense. But look, if he's healthy and he's cleared, he can play. So to me, that's the question. If he's not, he shouldn't play. Now, what Ben's saying is right. You want to be very cautious about this and be careful. But if he gets cleared, he plays. I don't understand what the question is. I mean, there's no uncertainty here. If he's clear, he plays. If he's cleared, he plays. If he's not cleared, he doesn't play. No matter what the circumstances or playoff ramifications, you got to be careful here. So I don't understand. This is not like this is his decision. This is a doctor's decision. This is a medical decision. So I don't understand. Why are we acting like he has a choice here? What Ben said, I think, was just him cautioning. Well, I mean, even then, like, it's not like Andrew's got a choice here. If he can't play, he can't play. If he can play, he can play. I don't understand what the deal is here. It's an off. That's a good question, and I did see the article this morning, and I see what Ben was saying, but again, it's not. I understand what he's saying, but it's not Andrew's decision. If the doctor says, "Hey, you're good," you're good. That's the way it works. Let's see. Obviously, right now, if you look at both respective leagues, it looks like we could be headed for a Cowboys Patriots Super Bowl. Outside of those two teams, and the obvious other participants that potential participants, including Seattle, Denver, and I can't even read that last part. Hang on. Oh, Seattle and Denver. Okay, that's all there is. And Seattle and Denver. What other teams can you see making a potential Super Bowl run? Well, in the AFC, you always look at a team like the Steelers and say that even though they played very inconsistent football, that they can make it. I keep waiting for Kansas City to break through because I certainly think they're good enough. I don't know if that will be this year, but the Giants can certainly get there. Those would be the teams I think of. Kansas City and Pittsburgh. And I know those aren't really like true upset kind of teams, but those are the only two teams I could see breaking through. And on the NFC side, Seattle and New York, I think, have the best chance. So, who would be your choices right now for league MVP? Who would be your choice right now for league MVP? For the Cowboys, Dak Prescott would be my league MVP. I'd give it to Dak Prescott. Even though he's a rookie, I'd give it to him. Nobody's made more of an impact in my mind. Nobody. And you think about this can't be a Brady year because Brady missed the first. I don't think they'd go for Brady. This can't be a Brady year. And think about who else has had a good year. Look around the league. I mean, who else are you going to go for? I would say Dak Prescott. It's an easy choice to me. What do you think the Bears will do about Jay Cutler? I think they need to cut the cord. I think the Bears need a complete overhaul of everything. I think that's become obvious. It's been you can't keep the guy healthy. You can't do anything with him. I truly think they need a clean slate. They need to do that. They need to start doing that now. Draft a good quarterback and move on. I think it's time. I do. Oh, and going back to that Super Bowl question, the Raiders, another AFC team. The Raiders, actually, you know what? The Raiders might be that surprise team that does it. The Raiders are certainly good. They're good enough. They're good enough. We've seen enough. I've seen enough to know they're good enough. So, there's been a lot of talk about Josh McDaniels leaving the Patriots after the season and going for another head coaching job. Do you see this happening? And if so, where could you see him land? Well, it's really early for this because a lot's going to depend on what coaching positions are available. I've also seen some people think he could go to college. I don't think he will. A lot of people in the NFL like Josh McDaniels. I think he'll get a job in the NFL. If Chicago opens up, I could see him going there. But if he wants something a little and wants to go to a team that's in a little bit better shape and has more going for it right now and might have a chance to win quicker. I mean, if New Orleans is looking if Sean Payton gets fired, that'd be great for him. Offensive team, yeah, that'd be great for him. Cincinnati would be great for him if that job opens up, which I think it will. Um, yeah, I could see Cincinnati or Chicago be two good fits for him. Or New Orleans if it opens up again. He'd do well in any of those places. Let's do a couple more and then we're gonna close here. Which of the teams that currently mired in the middle of the in the currently mired in the pack that is known as the 500 teams or close to 500 teams do you see making a run at the playoffs and having the best chance to make the playoffs? All right, so that's a strangely worded question, but I get what they mean. You got all this bunch of teams at 5-5 or 5-6 or 6-5, whatever. Which of those teams has the best chance to make it? Well, obviously, I mean, look at Pittsburgh or Baltimore. They have a good chance because of the way things are in the division. But outside of those two teams, Buffalo maybe. See, the tough thing for Buffalo is going to be the Dolphins are going to be a fly in the ointment for teams. The Dolphins are going to be a major fly in the ointment because they flew under the radar. And the way that their schedule plays, I'm going to pull up the Dolphins' schedule right now. I'm going to pull up their schedule right now. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because, look, assuming they win this week, which I think they will, that gets them to 7 wins. And you got to watch this because if the Dolphins, okay, so this is week 11. We don't want week 11. We want okay. Week 20. Week 11. We don't want that. We want week 12. Okay, we already know what they're doing in week 12. So let's go to week 13. All right. Let's take a look here. Okay, Miami at Baltimore. So they could lose that game. If they win that game, then they're definitely making the playoffs. All right. And then Minnesota's gonna play Dallas next week. So that could hurt their chances. I just thought I'd bring that up. Because that's important. But I just happen to notice that, and that seems important because Minnesota is a team that been a lot of discussion about this year. All right, so Miami plays the 49ers on Sunday. The Ravens, the Cardinals, the Jets, the Bills, and the Patriots. All right, so it's not as much of an easy road as it's been the last few weeks for them. All right, so let's give them the win this week. That gets them to 7-4. Let's say they lose at Baltimore. That's 7-5. Let's say they lose at Arizona. That's 7-6, even though they're at home in that game. They beat the Jets. That's 8-6. That leaves you with the Bills and the Patriots. So let's say they lose to the Patriots. That makes you 8-7. They have to. It doesn't look nearly as good as I thought. Let's say if they beat the Bills, they're looking at 9-7. That might be enough. But they're going to be there's still going to be a problem for teams. There's still going to be a massive problem for teams. Nobody counted on the Dolphins being in play here, but they are. They are. Even at 9-7, they're going to be. So we'll see. All right, let's do one more question here. I look for a good one here. Trying to find something that we haven't already kind of dealt with. I kind of already addressed it, but we'll just do this one. There have already been several ties in the league this season. This has always been a problem for the league, and ties obviously muddle up what could be an already muddled up playoff picture. Why does the league allow games to end in ties, and do you think they should do away with it? Yeah, I do. I don't think any game, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, should ever end in a tie. I don't care how late you have to go. I don't care. You finish the game, you get a result. If it's a weather situation, you have to just suspend the game, and you suspend the game and you pick it up again. I don't care what inconvenience that does. I don't like ties. I don't think there should be ties. It does make things confusing, and it's not fair. And I understand, and especially at the NFL, the NFL and NHL and that, you physically demanding sports. I understand that, at some point you feel like you have to shut down because there's too much. I understand that. And maybe you can implement something that could help out with that. But no game should end in a tie. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have to be looking at standings and see 2-2-1 or whatever next to a team. It's just not right. It's lazy. It's not right. And it's frustrating for the teams because you bust your rear end, you work your tail off, and you get a tie. What does that tell you? It's almost like a complete waste of time. So, no, they should do away with it, and no game should ever end in a tie. And it's unfortunate that we've had that happen a couple of times this year already. And it could play a major role in things for some teams. And that's where I don't like it. And that's where it shouldn't be. Because it's a disadvantage to some teams that shouldn't be a disadvantage. Because you always wonder, it's an uncertain factor, and you shouldn't have that. We shouldn't be adding uncertain factors to the mix. It should be a win or a loss, a definitive result. So, no, I do not like it. I do think they should get away with it. It's embarrassing that they don't. All right. So, we did enough. We did, I think, 6 or 7 questions or comments. That's good. And with all that said, we got the questions, we got the comments, we got through everything we had to get through. So with all that being said, we are done. As always, the show might be over. It's not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to our show. You continue to have your voice, send us your feedback, your questions about the show and the scheduling of the show. Topic ideas related to topic ideas and breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, and wrestling that you want us to cover. Comments, reactions, opinions, and things we said on the show and things we talked about on the show. And these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. You can use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag itsfootballblitz, or you can create your own hashtag as long as it starts for hashtag ITS, and also as long as it's not disrespectful or insulting or offensive. There's enough of that in the world. We don't need to contribute to it. So as long as it's not any of that, you can do that. That's all we ask. You can also find us on Facebook. To search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure you like our page if I'm finding it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially as it relates to scheduling. Obviously, schedules can change. We can postpone, delay, stuff like that. We try to let you know in advance, but sometimes things happen. So you want to make sure you follow us on social media to get the latest information about the show. And also, of course, we post other things on there as well. So it's always good to follow us on there just for the hell of it, too. If you'd like to keep up with our show, look back at classic episodes or, maybe miss an episode, whatever the case may be, have a number of ways in which to do that. If you're a fan of streaming, you like seeing us on screen, and you're comfortable with that, and you just like streaming, and maybe you're only interested in more recent episodes of our show, then Google Plus and YouTube might be the way to go. So you can search for us on Google Plus and YouTube by searching for our show title, In the Spotlight 411, and then you'll find our page on both sites, and you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube, which is everything from mid-October of 2015 all the way up into today's episode. Those episodes are available to you anytime. Again, just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Google Plus and YouTube, and you'll have access to those episodes. If you're more of a fan of audio podcasts, maybe you want to listen to us on the go, maybe you'd rather listen to us rather than see us on screen. And also, if you're interested in older episodes of our show as well, if any of that applies to you, then you want to check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both Podbean and iTunes. And you'll have access to our show pages on both sites that will contain every episode we've ever done in the 6 years that we've been doing this show. Everything from October 2010 all the way to today's episode, in order from most recent to the oldest. Our Google Plus and YouTube episodes are also included in that, and they're all in audio format for your convenience, transferred from their visual format. So you'll have all those episodes available in audio format for your convenience. So If you're a longtime fan, maybe you want to look back at an episode from 4 or 5 years ago, or a new fan never saw an episode of our show from 4 or 5 years ago, or heard an episode of our show from 4 or 5 years ago, or just want to keep up with recent episodes, missed an episode, missed a Pirate episode, any of that applies to you. And maybe, again, you just want to listen to us on the go, and you can search for us on Podbean and iTunes. Again, search for In the Spotlight 411, and you'll have access to those episodes again. So Podbean, iTunes, for audio podcast, for audio, for streaming, Google Plus and YouTube, all ways which you can keep up with the show and check out classic episodes and all that good stuff. So again, just search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites, and you'll be able to do all that. I want to thank myself for our great show, pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. And for those that will be watching or listening to this later, thank you to you as well. We are not done completely for today. We do have our usual Tuesday night primetime show tonight here on YouTube and Google, on YouTube, I should say, at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Our usual, we'll do all of our usual sports stuff. Obviously, we already took care of football, but everything else, baseball, college basketball, all that good stuff tonight. And of course, we'll cover wrestling as well. We'll cover the fallout of Survivor Series and Monday Night Raw. We'll do all that tonight. Any other wrestling stuff we have to get to. And, of course, we'll do our usual entertainment stuff, box office, beat TV highlights, all of that good stuff tonight. So it'll be a jam-packed show tonight in our second show of the day, our usual Tuesday night primetime show coming at you tonight at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here on YouTube. So you want to make sure you tune in for that. Until then, that is our next show. For those that are exclusively Football Blitz watchers or listeners, our next Football Blitz show will be a week from Friday, which is December the 2nd. And again, as usual, will be scheduled for 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, obviously give or take a few minutes. So that will be our next Football Blitz show. But our next actual show is tonight again, our usual Tuesday night primetime show, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tonight on YouTube. So you want to make sure you tune in for that. Until tonight, I hope you have a great afternoon. And we'll see you back here in a few hours at 9 o'clock Eastern Time tonight for our next show. Until then, have a good afternoon, everybody.